In today's video, we are going to be running all of my locomotives. To start things off, we are going to be running an AHM Union Pacific switcher. I got this at an antique mall for only $4.50. It runs very well. It can be quite speedy. It runs very good. Next up, we have what is probably the fastest engine in my collection. It is an Athearn Hustler. I got this in a lot off of eBay, along with a couple other engines, and it is very fast. And you can see I haven't ran it in a while, and as it started to go around, it's got even faster. So yeah, that is very speedy. Next up, we have a Marks New Haven switcher that I got off of eBay. It runs pretty good. I serviced it, and yeah, it's a nice little piece of equipment. Runs pretty good for how old it is. Probably 50 at least years old, probably 60 or more. This next one is kind of special because it's actually the only DCC engine I have in my collection. It's actually equipped with sound, and although I don't have a DCC controller, I can run it with the sound just on DC. It's a new engine, so of course it runs fine. It's got some neat sounds and stuff too. Yeah, so that's that one. Next up, we have an engine that looks very similar but has a different internals. This one is a 3rd generation Lifelike. It runs pretty good. It needs traction tires. Probably use a wheel cleaning. But it runs pretty good. If I got it some new traction tires, clean the wheels, I think it'd go even better. But already goes pretty decent. Next one has a basically identical drive, but similar paint scheme, but different colors. And it runs pretty good. And again, could maybe use a wheel cleaning like that one. But it runs pretty good. This next one is kind of special because it was actually my first ever engine. I got this in the Bachman Coastliner set back in 2020, and I went ahead and attached what's left of the train that came with it. There was one more car, but that ended up getting used to try to make a trolley, which was a failed project, but yeah, that's that. This next engine is a Lifelike 2nd generation that I actually painted myself. It doesn't, paint job's not great, but it was a fun project. I think it could use some traction tires. It doesn't get a lot of traction, but it kind of runs. I think it would do well with some new traction tires. But yeah, that's that. Next one is an AHM BL2, Chicago, Eastern Illinois. I got this at an antique mall. And that actually hasn't been running in a while, and it's still running pretty good. Fired right up. So that's that. Next up is a Tyco Power Torque Silver Streak. I'm not sure if this one will start, because it's been a while since it's been run, and these aren't as reliable. But actually looks to be doing pretty good. A little bit slower than I'd like it to be, but it's not going too bad. That runs alright. Next up is a Tyco Manual Spirit of 76. Actually got this at a train show for only $5. I was getting ready to leave the show, and I found this right before I walked out and thought, hey, that's pretty cheap. So it runs pretty good. It's a fun thing to run around 4th of July and stuff. Next up is an Athearn locomotive. It doesn't have the flywheels. It's probably from about the 1960s, but runs pretty well. Got this at an antique mall too, and yeah, runs pretty nice. This next one is an Athearn Blue Box locomotive. It's actually a dummy engine, but not really, because it has a motor in it. I'll show you what I mean. So you can see inside the engine, it actually has a motor. It's just missing the drive shafts, and Whoever had it before me removed the wire on the top so the motor doesn't start. But if I could find the parts, I'd like to get it running because I like the looks of that shell. Next up is a River Rossi locomotive that I got off of eBay. It runs really well. I like the drive system in it. And I'm not for sure, but from what I've heard about other similar ones, I think the motor might actually have ball bearings. So yeah, it's a pretty neat look. Next up is an Athearn Blue Box that I got at a train show for $5. Couldn't believe how cheap it was. And we've actually worked on this channel before. It runs very good. Sounds like it might have a cracked gear. I don't know. Still runs pretty good. Next up is an AHM locomotive that I got at an antique store. It runs pretty good. Actually ran fine when I got it, and then I tried to service it and ended up creating a whole lot of problems with the motor and stuff. But I've since worked on it, and it runs pretty good. Next up is a locomotive I got at a train show actually for free. So I walked up to the stand, and this locomotive was in a box. And it had a bunch of markings on it, a bunch of different prices. And I asked the guy how much it was, and he asked if I liked it, and he said I could have it for free. So, someone at some point had written junk on the box, so I think they might have thought it was kind of hopeless, but I worked on it, and it runs pretty good. It sounds like the flywheel might be rubbing up against the shell, but it's actually like cast iron. It's a pretty neat looking. Next up is an Athearn Blue Box Amtrak locomotive. I got this at a train show, and it runs pretty good. Actually, it has a cracked gear, but you can't even really tell. You can hear it a little bit, but it still coasts, like, if you run the speed up, she'll coast down pretty good, and pretty good. Next up is a 1980s Bachmann chassis system locomotive. It was actually one of the lucky survivors for a while that didn't have cracked gears. And then I got it out to run it a few months ago. And I discovered that it now has the clicking noise. So one of those gears must have gave out. But it still runs. This next locomotive is an AHM that I got in a lot off of eBay. And well, it's running good. There we go. Yeah, pretty good runner. Hasn't been raining in a while. That's probably why it hesitated a little bit. But it runs pretty. This next one is a older Athearn, probably from about the 50s. It has the older drive, not the modern one. But yeah, runs pretty good. It's got a big heavy weight in it, so be able to pull quite a few cars. It actually pulled when I first got it. It ran, but it pulled over 2 amps. So now it's down to about half an amp, which is about right for a motor of its age. But yeah, runs pretty. Next up is kind of a special engine because it's actually like the first older locomotive I got. It's kind of what got me into working on older ones. I got it in 2020 for Christmas, which was the same year I got into model railroading. Yeah, it's a Taiko Manua, and it runs pretty good. This next one is a Santa Fe from Athearn. It also has the older 1950s drive. It's different from like the blue box drives and stuff. Yeah, it runs pretty good. Current draw's a little high on it, but I think the magnets in the motor are a little weak because it doesn't kind of lock into the spots when you turn it around. It more just like spins freely, so I think the magnets might be a little weak, but still runs pretty good.